And we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about what Lane Johnson had to say of the Philadelphia Eagles. Kind of just talking about the Eagles' upcoming season. So I just wanted to get into that and what he had to say. So he said recently, we have a lot of new faces, a lot of new faces, a lot of turnover. This is what he said on NFL Network's The Insiders on Monday. But he said, but I felt comfortable with the way we drafted, got some great players, and really, when you look at our roster, we have a lot of size. Obviously, we have to go prove things and are eager to do so. But when you just look at the guys walking around the building, we've got size, we've got speed, and guys willing to work. And let's see if there was anything else that he had to say. Oh, he talked about Saquon Barkley. He said, once you see him, you'll never forget just physically imposing guy. I think he walks around 230 pounds. He's ultra competitive. When you see what he can do at the running back position, and we can flex him out as a receiver, he can go. It's unbelievable. I never thought that he would be playing for us, but here it is. I know that he's excited. We're definitely excited up front. I think he's poised for a big, big year. And then also, he said, every year is different. I wish I had the answers to why the second half of the season went the way it did. So he was talking about the collapse from last year. It was something that went by so fast, and I know after it wasn't a problem, but I'm looking forward, obviously, to this new offense under Kellen Moore. Going to be some exciting things changed up for us up front. Excited. 12th year. Crazy how fast it goes by. So, yeah, I like how he kind of put things into perspective. Like they made a lot of moves. They drafted, guys on the defensive side of the ball. They also brought back C.J. Garner-Johnson. They added to the linebacking core. You added Bryce Huff. You added Devin White. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you added Saquon Barkley. So, yeah, to go along with what they already had, yeah, this team should be very good once again. And, they made the changes at coordinators. Like, I know I've talked about the Eagles, a handful of times as well here in the offseason. But, yeah, I mean, they just got to go out there and prove it. And I think that ultimately they will do that. I mean, I think I had them going, 12-5, winning 12, 13 games again. But, yeah, they got to go out there and do it. And they start off in Brazil against the Packers, which I'm looking forward to that game. I think that should be that's one of the best games of opening weekend. And then you go from there. But, you add Saquon Barkley to the offensive side of the ball. I mean, now that Barkley has an offensive line that he can run behind because, a lot of years with the Giants, it wasn't great. Was not great. But now you have an offensive line that, can give you lanes to run through. I mean, he should go out there and have a good year. And, you're hoping for Jalen Hurts to bounce back and limit the turnovers. You got your receivers signed long term, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So, yeah, and you got a good tight end, Dallas Goedert. Yeah, this team is going to be good. It should be. But they got to go, like you said, you got to go out there and prove it. And I do think that they're going to miss Jason Kelce because he was just a big part of that team for so long. And, now Jurgens has to step in, Cam Jurgens. He's got to step in and be the guy. So I'm curious to see how that, plays out. But, that core four of Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, Brandon Graham, and Fletcher Cox, yeah, it's now down to 2. And, we'll see how impactful that is. But I'm pretty sure I did a segment on, guys that got to step up and be leaders in the locker room. Brandon Graham's taking on that role. Again, Lane Johnson is still there because that's what we're talking about. Jalen Hurts also. Guys are going to have to step up and be leaders in that locker room with some of the guys that have left. And they did lose, 2 key guys on both lines. So, we'll see how that plays out. But I just think that last year, you don't want to repeat that. I think they're going to be it's going to be different this year. I think you're going to see a team that's more like the team from 2022 that made it to the Super Bowl. Because I think this team is a Super Bowl caliber team. I do. but got to go out there and do it. And if they don't, well, there's going to be changes. I think it's going to start with the head coach, because I think Eagle fans were ready to, say, you know what, Nick, you're gone. We're done with you after the kind of season they had, despite him, making the playoffs his first 2 seasons, and he's made the playoffs every single year he's been the coach of the Eagles. They made it in 21 when people didn't expect them to be that good, especially after Nick Sirianni's opening press conference. The comparisons, I always make the comparisons between that press conference and Dan Campbell's press conference. The Dan Campbell press conference was so extreme, and I don't really even know how to describe Nick Sirianni's, but it just, the contrast, if you go and watch Dan Campbell's introductory press conference and compare it to Nick Sirianni's press conference, completely different press conferences. But you know what? Both coaches have found success. Dan Campbell's team, they just recently made it to a championship game. The Eagles, they made it to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So, different styles, but if that's what you want to call it. And they've found success. Although last year, the Eagles want to forget about last year. So, I think they will bounce back. And yeah, he talked about how Lane Johnson talked about how they didn't expect to get Saquon Barkley. I didn't expect it either. I was hoping Barkley was going to go somewhere else, but it is what it is. I think that is one of the best spots that he could have ended up in. And like I said, you know what? I expect him to go out there and have a good year. Just don't do good against the Giants. That's all I'm saying. So I think he is. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, how Kellen Moore is going to do with this offense. Jalen Hurts talked about it when I did a segment on that, how, the offense is, I think it's like, what he said, he gave it like a percentage. It was like 95%, like different, or something along the lines of that. And then, Vic Fangio, we'll see how he is with this unit on defense. Got a lot of young players in the secondary. And they also brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson as well. So, I don't really know what else to say. The talent is there. So, and they just got to go out there and show it. I expect them, for me, I think they're the favorites in the division. It's going to be between them and Dallas. I think they are better than Dallas, but I think they'll at least, between those two teams, I think they'll split, because that's what they did last year. Now, Dallas could have won both games, but they split, and I think that's going to happen again. And the Commanders are, rebuilding. Giants, same thing. They got question marks. It's going to be between the Eagles and the Cowboys for the NFC East. And then in the grand scheme of things, where do the Eagles rank? I said it. It's, you got the Niners, you got the Lions. I think the Packers are in that conversation, and then Dallas is there as well. I think all the teams I just mentioned, I think they're better than all the teams in the NFC South. Although Mike Florio had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his top 10, because he did a power rankings of all 32 teams. He put the Buccaneers at 9. Now, if you have been a viewer of this show, you know that I am a Baker Mayfield fan. And I was very pleased with how he performed last season. The Buccaneers did win the NFC South. They won a playoff game. They were in the game against the Lions. Towards the end at least, but anyways, I don't look at the Buccaneers as a top 10 team. So I don't know what the thought process was there, but I thought that was interesting that he put the Buccaneers at 9. I think that's definitely too high for them. But yeah, the Packers, Lions, and not in particular order, but the Packers and the Lions, the 49ers, the Eagles, I think those teams, and then you got the Cowboys as well. Those are the best teams in the NFC. That's like my top 5. Those 5 teams. And then the Rams, the Rams and the Falcons are kind of like outside of that top 5. They'd probably be, 6 and 7. Am I missing anybody else? Like I said, yeah. I mean, all the NFC South teams are not in it. The Bears, we'll see how they are. I think they'll be good, but we'll see. But yeah, that would be my top 5. And the Eagles right now, I think I did do like a rankings at one point, and I put the Packers over the Eagles. They're 3 and 4 right now. I'd probably have the Lions and the 49ers as the top 2 at the moment. So, but yeah, I mean I think the Eagles are going to be good, and this is coming from a Giant fan. Like I don't like saying it, but I mean I'm not going to be biased and say they're going to continue to be how they were to finish off the year. No, they are going to be back to how they were a couple years ago, and when they were the 10-1 team last year, and even when they were 10-1. People were saying, yeah, the Eagles still haven't played their best football yet. Well, and they kind of fell apart after that. But yeah, it's a new year, and I think they're flushing that collapse away, and we'll see how they come out this year. But a lot of new players. They address some needs. I mean, the defense, the defense was not good. And especially you go to the playoff game against the Buccaneers, I don't know, they just were not tackling. So, they injected some youth into that secondary. You added to the linebacking core. You got rid of Hassan Reddick, but you were able to replace him with Bryce Huff. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think about what Lane Johnson had to say. How do you think the Eagles will do in 2024? Do you think I'm being way too optimistic with them? I mean, I think with the moves that they've made, they had a great offseason. I think they should be back to how they were when they were 10-1 and, even the year before that when they made it to the Super Bowl. So, we're going to take our final break of the show here. When we come back, we'll actually talk about the Giants. So we actually, had a lot of NFC East stuff to cover today. Talked about the Cowboys, talked about the Eagles just now. Now we're going to talk about the Giants because the Hard Knocks trailer dropped for them. So I just wanted to talk about that and just kind of like some of the things that we will, see covered in this show. And it actually comes out next week. So I'm going to make sure to try to, check it out at some point to give you my thoughts on it. Because next week I will not be here. I will be on vacation, so I am not going to be. I'm going to be on a week-long hiatus. So, but when I do, because I'm going to try to watch, Hard Knocks and try to get to the quarterback Netflix show. Because we still got a little bit before we get to the the preseason. So I'm going to try to at least give us more things to talk about before we get to. Some games. But yeah, that is what we will discuss when we come back from our final break of the show today. So stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.